Hello again. We have Ambassador Geoffrey Pyatt with us for a greeting. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for supporting this initiative and for being here with us today.
Good. Well, thank you, Stella. It's so great to be back here in Delphi. Since this is my first public remark here, I want to start by saying just how wonderful it is to be back in a room full of human beings again.
So true.
And I was, the first talk I went to was a discussion with Lydia Caras and her friends from Elenikia. It was partially a memorial to my dear friend Costa, but it was also one of the best discussions I've attended in 5 Delphis, focused on the unique atmosphere of this particular corner of Earth. And so it really is special to be here. And I'm especially glad that we're able to do this event, our Inclusivity Lounge, here at Delphi. I want to start by giving huge credit to my team at the embassy, Cindy Harvey, our public affairs officer, and the indispensable Eleni Alexaki. Who conceived of the Inclusivity Lounge for Delphi 2020, when we thought we were all going to be sitting here 2 years ago. And we've done it online since then, and I want to say thank you, Stella, to you and to Penelope for the great partnership. These are a set of issues that I feel really passionately about. I'm very grateful that we have such a strong relationship with the Greek government on these issues, with Minister Maria Sirangela, who's going to be speaking later on.
She wasn't able to join us today, but we will have her colleague, Elena Pevkianaki, with
Okay,
us.
super. And then I think we also have Aubrey Paris, who is the State Department's senior advisor for gender issues, who will be speaking remotely in just...
She spoke in the first panel.
Good,
she was
good,
great.
good. Okay, great, good. So all of these, as usual, Cindy and Eleni are ahead of me. This topic could not be more important right now. And I want to start by talking for just a second about Ukraine, which is an issue that has affected me, has affected all of us over the past 6 months, but it has affected me in a very specific and personal way. There are so many voices that we have seen since Putin's unprovoked and brutal invasion on the 24th of February. But a lot of those voices have been women and mothers, in part because they're the only ones who can get out. So they are the 4 million refugees, the largest refugee crisis that Europe has seen since the Second World War. When I was ambassador in Ukraine, I got to know so many strong women in civil society. And I'm very proud that today, a number of those women are now members of parliament. So people like Ivana Klumpush, who was in Washington last week, meeting with Deputy Secretary Nuland and others to highlight the importance of the whole world rallying to support Ukraine to ensure that democratic forces prevail in what I am convinced will be one of the defining struggles of the 21st century. None of this, and I'll talk more about it later today, none of what's happened in Ukraine in terms of their courage and response has surprised me, and I'm not at all surprised to see women being at the front of the line in terms of defending Ukrainian democracy. But I think it's important for all of us to understand that in the situation in which the world is going through a series of crises, all of which have affected women disproportionately. The war in Ukraine I've talked about, the focus of the Inclusivity Lounge this year, the climate crisis, disproportionately affecting women and mothers around the world. The COVID crisis, which we talked about last year when we did Delphi in Athens. And so if we're going to be successful in addressing these challenges, we also have to address the improvement of the situation of women, the empowerment of women. And this has been a priority for me almost since the day of my arrival in Greece 6 years ago. I've been really, really proud of all the different programs that the embassy has been involved with, focused on reinforcing all that is already happening in Greek society in terms of strengthening the position of women and girls, women's entrepreneurial empowerment, women's political empowerment. It's been such a privilege for me to get to work with Mays and I and all of the incredibly impressive and powerful women at a Women Act and the work that they've done with us through the Women Candidates Program. I was incredibly honored to be part of the launch of Women Act Thessaloniki, but also now to see how Women Act is growing in Alexandropoli. And May has told me how that's one of the most engaged communities that they have right now.
Amazing.
Code Girls, a program that we have been doing throughout my tenure here. I'll always remember my first Code Girls, which was in Trikla, and how impressive it was to see these young girls, 12 years old, and how enthusiastic they were about technology tools, and thinking that those 12-year-olds are now 18-year-old young women, and what that means for how the Greek economy works. I was so thrilled. In the fall, we had Code Girls Syros, first time we had done Code Girls on an island, and to meet one of the instructors who had just graduated from the Polytechnico, was herself a computer scientist, and was a Code Girls graduate. So it really captures this idea of paying it back. And we've done this in Yanina, we've done this in Kalamata, really trying to raise horizons. I am in awe, as I have been since the first day I met her in one of my first engagements in Greece, in awe of everybody at the Melissa Network, and sure, all the work that they do for women refugees, the courage that they have demonstrated, and I'm especially proud of the partnership that we've had with Melissa Network on the work that they have done to support the Afghan women parliamentarians who came here to Greece after the collapse of the government in Kabul last August. And it's worth remembering, there was a time when the majority of the women in the Afghan parliament were right here in Greece.
Yeah.
And what was so impressive to me was they weren't thinking as a diaspora population. They were thinking about how, during the period of time they were outside of Afghanistan, they could build networks, be loyal to their constituents back in Afghanistan, and prepare for when they could go home. It's a little bit like the Ukrainian women who I hear from now, some of whom I'm in touch with, and they all say the same thing. They all say, we're not refugees. We're temporarily displaced, and we're here until we beat Putin, and then we go back to rebuild our democracy. And for me, that's incredibly powerful. So it's a real honor to be with this group. I shouldn't talk about the Ukraine stuff because it gets me all choked up. I also think, in terms of the work that we do together, I will be finishing up my time in Greece in a couple of weeks. The work is not done. And I think figuring out how we continue to build networks that bring men into this effort is really, really important. It is still the case. There are too many conferences, too many rooms I go into in Greece where the only woman in the room is somebody from my team. That should not happen, and it doesn't need to happen. And I was really delighted yesterday. We had another meeting with a group that I've been trying to support from my first days in Greece. It's a Women in Energy group, which happens to include the CEO of Greece's biggest gas company, the Secretary General of the Ministry of Energy. So these are not inconsequential positions, and these are people who are in their positions because of their talent, their creativity, and their hard work, and they just happen to be women. But I think creating an environment where that is not an accident is essential to Greece's long-term competitiveness, just as it's essential in the United States. And we still have work to do as well. I say this as the father of a 28-year-old daughter who is in the workforce. I'm very proud of her success, but I see how she still has to struggle sometimes to be heard. And I also saw for her, I remember her reaction when Hillary Clinton lost the election and how disempowering that was, but also when we elected Kamala Harris as our first African-American woman vice president. So and the biggest, the most senior position in our government ever achieved by a woman in politics. So this is all really important stuff. It's been a huge honor to work with you guys. I'm very grateful for our team, and wish you the very best.
It's been a real honor too, and your support has been so valuable to us and to the whole of all the networks, all the women networks in Greece.
Yeah.
So thank you so much on behalf of everyone, I think.
Good. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.